Hey, and welcome to another episode of Worship Tech Makeover. Adam here again, instructor and coach for Worship Ministry School. And today I want to share with you my time at Hilton Head Island with Jane from First Presbyterian Church, Hilton Head Island. On this trip, we were able to accomplish a lot of video goals. A lot of these trips have a lot of audio things that we're working on, but this one was mostly focused on video, so I'm excited to share with you things that are a little bit different, as well as the fact that this building has both a traditional service and in a traditional room, as well as a contemporary service in a totally separate part of the building. So we were able to work on two totally different systems on the same trip, which was interesting as well. The big goal that Jane had was a broadcast upgrade. So in the sanctuary, there was a studio production 4K by Blackmagic Design as their main video switcher. What we did was move that production 4K to the fellowship hall space and configure it for that space. And when we bought a ATEM 2ME Constellation HD for the sanctuary. And so that became the main video switcher and hub for that room. We also put a deck link duo in both rooms. So both rooms previously did not have the capability of showing lower thirds or showing text or graphic overlays, and now both rooms have that capability. Also, both rooms moved from Easy Worship to ProPresenter, and both rooms have a Resi-Ray encoder. Additionally, the sanctuary has an M32 Behringer console, and the fellowship hall has an X32 Behringer console. So all of these things having similar systems is going to be really helpful for Jane, who's in charge of all of it, but also other volunteers that might end up learning on one system and potentially being able to help out in another room. One thing that was really helpful in being able to switch all of these systems around is that Jane made sure that the volunteers serving in those spaces had time before Sunday to come look at the changes that we made and talk them through and answer questions if they had them on how to operate the equipment. So as cool as and fun as having new equipment is, making sure that the people operating the equipment are comfortable with it and are feeling ready to go before the service starts is really important. It's not a good idea to just try something new and throw it on before Sunday without telling anyone, and then as they're getting ready to do their thing, say, hey, by the way, this is totally different. So kudos to Jane for prioritizing that the volunteers needed to understand and feel comfortable with the systems, and that she gave time of her day to make sure that they were trained and ready to go and answer those questions. Speaking of being prepared, one of the things that made this trip as successful as it was is that Jane and I were able to spend a lot of time on coaching calls before I ever got out there. So Jane expressed her goals, what she wanted to accomplish, what the technology needed to do and able to reach those goals. And then we talked about the gap between the technology that she had and what might need to be purchased. And then we made sure that everything was purchased and that the equipment was, laid out in a rack. So we even put together, or rather Jane put together rack drawings of here's where the equipment needs to go, and even considering the slot that it's in and making sure that it makes sense, making sure there's a brush plate below the network switch so that all the cables can come in nice and tidy, and that there's a space at the top so that the power supply isn't butted up right against the top of the rack. So we figured out a lot of minute details so that by the time I got there, we're able to focus really on making sure that we programmed things properly and that we have plenty of time to troubleshoot if things weren't working, if we were able to fix things if something needed fixing before services on Sunday. I guess being prepared part 3 is probably the fact that I had my new Pelican Case with me and I had all the tools that I thought I might need, and boy did it make a difference. Obviously, the church could have provided those tools. I could have asked them to have those things, but having the tools that I know and that I'm comfortable with and having them in a case where I know exactly where to get them from really was a game changer. I'd not ever taken a headlamp with me before, but having a headlamp on so that I could crawl to the back of the racks and look at cabling and make sure that things were right without using my little phone flashlight was really helpful. Having my own snips and my own flush cutters and my own label maker that I knew how to operate and use quickly. All those little things really saved a lot of time in the long run. So if you're interested in seeing what's in my Pelican case, let us know in the comments and maybe I'll make a video about that as well. Speaking of tools, one of the tools that I personally used was Jump Desktop, a software where I'm able to jump into any computer that I would want to operate. And being that both the fellowship hall and the sanctuary were rooms that we were working on and they were on opposite sides of the building. Additionally, considering that in the sanctuary, the tech booth was kind of on some stairs, so there were different levels and it wasn't really quick and easy to get to the ProPresenter computer, especially having 4 or 5 people in that space during the training. So one of the tools I utilized was Jump Desktop, and I was able to jump into the Mac Studio in the sanctuary, and from there be able to control ProPresenter, the M32 via M32 Edit, the Constellation for video switching. So anything that I might need to assist with, I could do from my laptop, and I could do this to both rooms regardless of which room I was in. And even later at night, I was trying to figure out some things. So I was in my Airbnb on my laptop and I was remoting into Jane's church and making some adjustments and taking some notes. And that's one tool that's helpful for me outside of these trips, even as a coach for worship ministry school. If I am helping one of our students, I can just look at their computer and control their mixing console, their ProPresenter, their video switcher, anything that can be connected to the network. So that is one thing that I've been really excited about, being able to help people remotely through that tool.
Before we continue on with the video, a quick word from our sponsor, the Worship Ministry School Accelerator program. You may not know this, but in addition to all the YouTube content we're creating here at Churchfront, we also partner with local church worship and production ministries to help them hit their ministry goals. Over the past 4 years, we've worked personally with hundreds of worship ministries around the globe. We've helped churches navigate upgrading their worship tech, building better systems to grow their team of volunteers, as well as address any knowledge or skill gaps required for modern day worship ministry. When you join the Accelerator program, you get access to our entire library of online, on-demand courses, and you get unlimited access to our team of Churchfront coaches. To learn more about joining the program, click the link below this video to apply and schedule your free strategy session today. Now let's get back to the video.
A tool that Jane was using and that we set up at her church for both Fellowship Hall and the Sanctuary were StreamDecks. I love StreamDecks. I'm going to be making more videos on StreamDecks, so stay tuned for that. And again, let me know in the comments if you're interested in StreamDeck videos. But we were able to use the StreamDeck to trigger macros on the ATEM video switchers, both of them. So we were able to record macros, a set of actions or settings, so that with the push of one button, you can pull up a specific camera, you can turn on or off the overlays, you can even set the outputs for the MEE Constellation, being that any output can be routed from any input source. This ATEM 2ME Constellation is a really powerful tool, and pairing that with a Stream Deck for triggering macros makes it so that with the push of a button, you can have all of your outputs set the right way and your 2 mix effects set the way that you want them to. And a video that is already made that you don't have to ask for in the comments is the Advanced Multi-Camera Live Streaming course, which you can find on the Worship Ministry School website, or if you're a Worship Ministry School student, make sure that you check it out because we've updated it and we're using the ATEM 2ME Constellation as our base recommendation. And I have one in my office that I've been using, and it's just a really awesome video switching tool. I think that you'd be really impressed with it. A lot of our students have already purchased one and implemented it and are really happy with the results. One of the really cool things about the ATEM Constellation 2ME is the fact that it has a webcam output with a USB-C cable. So even now I'm looking at this camera to record this video. If I were doing a coaching call with you, then I would be using the ATEM 2ME as my webcam because it has the webcam out, which was helpful for Jane's church specifically because all the infrastructure for switching video cameras, for having audio is there, and it's routed to Resi for their church. But they have outside events that happen that get live streamed, and so just having a single USB cable, someone can bring their laptop, plug in that USB-C cable, and now they have access to the video switching, the audio stream for the live stream, and all they have to do is use that as their webcam for Zoom or Vimeo or whatever they're going to be live streaming from. But because they're using the ATEM 2ME, they have the audio from the M32, and they have all of the cameras in the room as well as the computer graphics from ProPresenter. So being able to live stream with just your laptop and plug in and have access to all of those things is really cool for outside events. Overall, I'm really impressed with Jane and how hard she worked, especially ahead of time, to make the most of our time in person so that we could make sure that things were ready for Sunday as we implement all of this new equipment. A couple of things I forgot to mention. We did install a new projector, so we replaced a projector that was dying. So the new one looks great, very bright, very clear. We also ran SDI cable. So I was just up on a ladder, removing the HDMI cable, removing some other just unnecessary cables that were taking up space in the fellowship hall. So all of the new runs are SDI. But I also like to include on these videos some of the things that we learned. Because I was using Jump Desktop at one point during the service, ProPresenter was set to system setting for the audio. So the system setting had moved to Jump Desktop, and what should have happened is going into ProPresenter and making sure that whatever audio output you want to send to, be it an audio interface so it can go to your video switcher or back to your mixing console so that it can be routed to your video switcher. That's where ProPresenter should be routed to, not just whatever your computer is using at the moment as the audio output. So that was one reminder of a setting that needs to be checked as you're setting up your ProPresenter computer, especially in a broadcast environment. Which leads me to always do a run through when implementing new things. I recommend people do this all the time as they're setting up ProPresenter for the first time, running through their looks, clicking each slide, just going through your service and seeing, does every output see what it needs to see? If you're setting up a mixing console for the first time, plugging in every single XLR or instrument and playing an instrument or using a tool to send audio through that channel to make sure that it's plugged into the stage box, and then it's plugged in, or rather like a floor pocket, and then that floor pocket's plugged into a stage box. That stage box is routed properly within your console, and then it's routed to different mixes or matrices or outputs, and that you hear it through the sound system. So really thoroughly testing things when you implement new stuff will result in fewer times that you realize, I forgot to check that. Now there's a problem. You want to have those moments before service starts. Things came up on the trip that we had to prioritize over all the goals that we had. It's always great to have stretch goals and things to do in case things go right the first time, which is pretty rare. So we ended up with a list of things to do post-visit for Jane to keep working on as she's still in the Worship Accelerator program. We still have coaching calls and figure things out over Zoom. So she is continuing to work on updating the power for Fellowship Hall. Not the greatest power units, so there have been some failures there. We didn't get to a gathering space, a third space that we didn't talk about because Jane and I didn't even get to spend time there, but she's going to repurpose the ATEM Mini Pro that she has for video switching in that smaller gathering space. One of the coolest things that I saw on this trip was that Jane was using a mini PC to control her ATEM software, and the mini PC had a touchscreen. So this touchscreen allows you to just look at the ATEM software and make adjustments to it rather than using a Stream Deck or physically pressing the buttons on the video switcher. So I thought that was a really cool way to operate the ATEM, and so she's going to put a second mini PC touchscreen in the fellowship hall. There's already one that's been in the sanctuary being used for a while now, so having that same type of interaction with the video switcher in both rooms is going to be helpful. As always, let us know what you think of what we had done here, what you would do, what you're looking to do, and if you want to get one-on-one coaching help, if you want to watch the course library that we have explaining how to use the ATEM video switcher and ProPresenter and mixing consoles, if you want me to come visit your church in person, you can go to worshipministryschool.com/apply, and I would love to help you reach your ministry goals. Thanks for watching.